potentially different on Wednesday? And what do you make of the number of military personnel who are in our nation's capital right now?
Well, let's talk about those softer targets of the Capitol buildings and state houses. So this is a success story. It's exactly the point of a chilling presence to tell bad, violent actors, don't try this here. So you shouldn't look at the lack of violence at our state houses as an overdoing it on security. You should look at it as a success, sending a signal. This isn't where you want to try this. With regard to the massive number of troops, equal to the amount of troops used to defeat Iraq in war, it's a sad state of affairs that we need that. But look, we've had an attempt to overthrow our democracy. We've had a successful breach of our iconic symbol of democracy, the Capitol building. We have an entrenched group of people who are moving toward violence, have already proven they will beat police officers, violent threats against the incoming administration. I sadly think this amount of resources is necessary.
Frank, are you in the D.C. area right now? Have you sort of seen at least what the layout is, the perimeter and stations of these troops? Does it seem as though truly they have protected any sort of possible entrance?
I'm not in the D.C. area, but I've talked to numerous friends who have done the walking of the perimeter, who live and work there, and they say, number one, it's unprecedented, and number two, it is saddening to see. But here's the problem with an insider threat. It only takes one officer, one service member to move a barricade or to lend a credential to someone with bad intentions. That's the problem. That's the threat we're facing.
Melanie, when you were working with the Secret Service, did you also share those concerns of a potential insider threat, this idea that someone you're working alongside could have bad intentions?
You know, we always take the totality of the circumstances into consideration. And if that were the case, you're heavily vetted as a FBI and Secret Service. So background checks, financial checks, neighbors checks, employer checks. I mean, every place you've ever worked and every school you've ever been to, your grades, everything is checked. So there is a vetting process in place for that. But of course, we always worry that someone can be misguided in their walk and then turn on the agency or the individual they're working with. So it's very important to focus on teamwork and to do this to have this mission play out as safely as possible. And I have no doubt that the great law enforcement officers in DC, FBI, Secret Service, they're going to be working collaboratively to fulfill their mission this Wednesday.
Frank, you were mentioning, of course, the possible threat that could come from social media. And we know that obviously it is a way for many people to communicate, online and potentially plan something that could be quite devastating. Are there some signs that you could look out for when the FBI is investigating these actors that they could look out for interactions that you might find on social media?
So this is the tremendous daunting challenge facing the FBI and law enforcement today, because they're having difficulty weeding out the people who are merely aspirational, saying, boy, if I could, I wish I could do this act of violence, right? But it's really some guy on his couch eating potato chips versus who's the one that really is going to act out, lead, execute, travel, and do something violent. And all of that is done in an environment trying to preserve civil liberties and privacy, not policing ideology, but rather policing people who are going to become violent. It is a daunting challenge, and it's a two-edged sword. You start taking down platforms, and you force people further underground, force them to use encrypted communications, go to dark corners of the internet where law enforcement may never see them.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great points you make. Frank Figliuzzi, and Melanie Burkholder, we appreciate your insight so much. Thank you for coming on National Report.